Hello, Easton, and welcome to the Rabbi's Roundtable. I hope everybody's having a great summer. This is actually the first live or new segment we've had in a while, and I'm delighted that we have three very special guests. The first two, Marilyn and Hal Wiener. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
Good to be here.
We'll talk a little bit about your book, and instead of me doing the biography, tell us about yourselves. We'll start with you.
Okay, so am I supposed to look at you?
Yeah, whatever, it's fine. You can look at whoever you want.
We grew up 5 blocks from each other, but we didn't know each other until 25 years later. We grew up in a neighborhood called East Flatbush in Brooklyn.
East Flatbush.
And there were thousands of kids between us,
Wow.
between our streets. It was probably a lower middle class neighborhood. There weren't too many, at least in my immediate neighborhood, there are not too many wealthy people. It certainly was not like Easton or Washington, D.C. But it was if anybody asked me, did I have a good childhood, I'd say I had the best, because you walked outside.
And you knew people.
And you played with whoever was there. So it was so unstructured, it was so free. We took bicycles, we went wherever we wanted to. We didn't have to check in, there were no cell phones. We knew we had to be back in time for dinner, and that was it. So,
and if you did something wrong, somebody's mother would tell your mother, and that was the end of it.
Yeah,
I know.
sure.
And they would call down the
Oh,
street.
absolutely.
But I didn't do too many things wrong at that time.
No.
I was a little bit of a goody two-shoes, believe it or not.
No,
But that changed by the time I got to junior high school. But it was free. We were 6 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment.
of course.
So, and I thought it was fine because I
what you
knew
knew.
everything. Yeah, I knew everything that was going on. There were no secrets, and I didn't notice that there was anything wrong with it until a teacher came in to give my older sister her homework assignments because she was out sick, and she came in and she said, "You all live here," and all of a sudden I said, "What's wrong?" So I thought it was terrific until we moved to Long Beach, and then
you had a different
we actually
situation.
had my next in line sister. I was one of 4. She and I shared a room, and we actually had our own bathroom too.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was luxury.
Anyway, I will tell the folk before Hal, you do your have a few words. Marilyn and Hal are among the world's most honored documentary filmmakers. It's really remarkable, actually. Through their Washington, D.C. production company called Screenscope, they've produced, written, and directed over 250 documentaries. Wow. I mean, that's an amazing statistic.
And 3 feature films.
I'm getting to that. And 4 public television series. Journey to Planet Earth. So you may know some of these. Women at Work, Faces of Man, and The World of Cooking, which I'm partial to. They've also produced, as I said, 3 feature films: Family Business, The Image Maker, and K2. Their current PBS series, Journey to Planet Earth, is narrated and hosted by Academy Award winner Matt Damon. And Hal, I'll let you continue and share about yourself and whatever else you'd like to.
Well, the name of our book is Confessions of Fish Out of Water Filmmakers in 4 Acts.
Yep.
Which is...
Here it is.
There it is. But it all began really in East Flatbush as filmmakers. We went to the Rugby Theater when we were both, Marilyn was 5 and I was 7, and we went every Saturday. And going there every week basically resulted in us falling in love with movies.
Yeah.
That was it. And we from a very early age, we decided that film could be our way out of what I called the tenements and what Marilyn calls middle class, lower middle class, upper low class. It all depends. But it's an interesting discussion of what is a tenement.
Sure.
According to Marilyn, a tenement is what's on what was in Manhattan on the Lower East Side where
Where the
Well,
shared
yeah.
bathrooms.
where you share bathrooms. And my idea of tenements was old, dilapidated houses where poor people lived, and that was where we lived.
Well, I mean, my apartment had, our building had 6 units, 2 on each floor, so there were only 3 stories, so that would not qualify as a tenement. You lived in an old building that had a courtyard that had lines of clothing strung from wall to wall. So, I mean, it looked a little bit more like a tenement. I'm not sure I would agree that it is. But then again, we often don't agree on a lot of things.
But the book is fascinating.
Thank you.
You have, and I did read a lot of it, and I recommend it. You have, the pictures are incredible. I love the wedding picture.
The wedding from hell.
But also with presidents and people of stature and fame, and showing the sphere of your influence.
Well,
Well, no, so I'm
Washington,
not-
D.C. is a place where you do rub elbows, and being a filmmaker, you do have access. So, yeah, we were lucky that way.
Yeah, and of all the folk you've interviewed, who is most interesting and engaging?
Probably Reagan.
Yeah, whose pictures in the book?
Yeah. Well, Reagan or Milton Berle, I'm not quite sure.
Whose pictures also? Yeah, that must have been interesting.
Milton was an interesting guy because, first of all, he was very arrogant and very, very smart. So there's, it's not a good combination.
Well,
But the idea that
I
when
know
we
a lot
were
of those folk.
Yeah.
when we were working with him in a film, and I had the chance to direct him,
Yes.
it was extraordinary because he really paid attention because you were the director or the producer. You're very dismissive in derogatory terms to everybody else, his co-stars or
That's
his
interesting.
valets or his chauffeurs or whatnot.
I think part of it may be is that we grew up watching him every Tuesday. What was it, Tuesday?
Tuesdays.
Tuesday evening
Yeah.
on the Texaco Hour, and I think that. But by the time he was 47, that was the end of his career, mostly. So
No, he was finished with television at age 47.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So he resented the fact that there was a whole generation after that had no idea who he was, and they didn't give him the deference that he felt he deserved.
Yes.
And
I mean, he was a
did.
trailblazer.
Yes, he was. He was. I mean, he did everything. He was a producer, the director, and the star of the Texaco
And
Hour.
writer.
And writer too.
And
Yeah. I mean, so there were parts of him that were wonderful and fascinating.
And parts that were resentful and.
Yeah, he was very kind to us because we were his equals as far as he was concerned.
Yeah.
But as Hal said, he was dismissive to most other people.
yeah, but towards the end of his life, we became quite close. Spent a lot of time with him at the Friars Club in L.A.
Oh, wow.
and sat with the old-timer comedians.
Like Red Buttons.
Red Button,
Yeah.
Buddy Hackett, all these guys. And they would tell the same freaking jokes
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
time we
Yeah.
saw them. But, Milton was really good because when we were being dismissed by lots of studios, Milton really said, don't be
Embraced it.
discouraged.
Oh,
Just
nice.
keep moving on and moving. And then he taught us how to sneak in to the studios, which we did.
The commissaries.
And the commissaries and,
The only story I have, it's not of Milton Berle, but you mentioned Buddy Hackett.
Yeah.
I met Buddy Hackett. I didn't meet him, but he was in, what was the great delicatessen in New York City?
Stage Deli.
The Stage, yes.
Yeah. Stage,
He was in the Stage, he was with some people, and I was probably 10 or 11, and I've always been aware of comedians. And I went up to him and I said, "May I have your autograph?" He said, "Of course," and he wrote it out, and I still have it someplace. I always was a fan of Buddy Hackett, but that's really interesting.
Oh, he was brilliant too.
Yeah.
I mean, he was.
Well, the truth of the matter is, you can't be a comedian and not be smart.
That's exactly.
You're absolutely
and,
right.
or be a good actor, for that matter.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
But if you look at the great comedians,
Yeah.
Sid Caesar.
all of them,
yeah,
including
yeah.
today, you know. There's a young man whose name is Elon Gould. I don't know if you know him.
Oh, Elon Gould.
Gold,
No.
yeah.
Gold. He's the guy didn't we see him at Willie's? Who's
No, that was
Anyway,
Edelman.
But he's brilliant,
Yeah.
insightful, and is able to bend the insight in a way that makes you
Right.
laugh at not only reality but at ourselves as well. So
There's a young comedian that we saw in Washington who's actually on Broadway now called Alex Edelman, who
Yes.
is amazing.
I heard,
Just
yes.
phenomenal. And, he takes humor and talks about infiltrating a QAnon group, anti-Semitic white nationalist group.
Yep.
And it's such a wonderful evening of pure entertainment.
Sometimes maybe a little close to home,
Yeah, a
but
little
nevertheless.
close, but nonetheless.
So, how many Emmys have you guys won?
Oh, 2 or 3, that's not much, actually.
What's that like? That must be amazing.
That's not an Academy Award. I mean, the thing about making a film is, for me, after you make it, and all the accolades come in, it's over. That's it. Then you're on to the next. It's just, it's not something that lasts.
It's creativity, you know.
Yeah,
You finish the project and you
Right.
move on to the next
Yeah.
one, but still,
Yeah.
the reality is that what you've created lasts and still influences people.
Yeah, but what we're trying to do, I don't know whether we're successful or not, is to translate our ability to make movies into the ability to write books. We're on to our second book now, but it's a different genre.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
a different type of writing.
Yeah.
And when you do a film, when you write a script or you direct a film or produce a film, you're dealing with so many different elements, not only visual elements, but you're dealing with music, sound effects, and the narrator. We've been very lucky. We've been working with Matt Damon now for
20
20 some
yeah.
odd
Really?
years.
Yeah,
You know.
since the time he was a kid,
Yeah.
just about to turn 30.
And
Yeah.
when he was young and smoking nonstop.
But what's so interesting about him particularly is that we've known him when he started the Firstborn film to now, and he definitely is a lot richer than he was then, but the same Matt Damon, the least spoiled, the least egotistical
That's really
person that I've ever worked with.
Yeah. The best example of his non-ego is we were doing a narration with Matt. We did it all over the country, wherever he was, but we were doing it in New York, and it was a morning narration, and he comes in, and he really looked like, to be perfectly honest, I'm sorry. And
You'll be
yeah, you can bleep it out.
I will.
If that's the only bleep to get out of my mouth, that's amazing. But Matt comes in, looks terrible, really looks terrible. Until we found out he was up all night shooting a chase scene in Bourne. Yet he showed up.
Yeah,
He showed up.
And on time. I mean, not always on time, but most of the time on time. The other thing is that was so amazing is he insisted that we use his makeup person and his hairdresser. I mean, come on, hair, but he was right. I mean, he was right, because and she made him look as if he had just woken up, as if he were just, and his skin was as clear as could be. They really know what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, it was just...
There's an intimacy when you
yes,
look like
and that's that too.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they knew how to cover anything that needed to be covered and still make him look as wonderful as he is.
The interesting thing is that he wasn't our first choice. It was Redford. Was our
Really?
first choice. So Redford calls us up I says, "Hey guys, it's Bob." You know, Bob. I know for Bob. I said, "Yeah, Bob, how you doing?" Okay. He says, "Look, I hear you want me to narrate your shows. I know your shows; they're pretty good, and I'm in. I'm in 100%. I'll narrate your shows." I said, "That would be really great, and then we can do a couple of stand-ups, so you can introduce them." Oh no. I don't do stand-ups. I don't mix my acting persona with my non-profit persona. Who the hell ever thought of personas?
Right. I mean, he's done amazing things for independent film, independent filmmakers. So it's certainly not a put down by any means. But I mean, he was being perfectly serious. He wouldn't, and we went back and forth with his environmental advisor, and she said no. He would do it. He would do it in a heartbeat, but he will not be on camera. And that's when we decided, no, we need somebody who will introduce the shows and close, just a wraparound, as they call it. And he wouldn't do it, and we moved on.
Of course.
Yeah.
But these are just a few of the story. In our book, it's hundreds of stories of meeting all these.
Again, confessions of fish out of water filmmakers in 4 acts. Go ahead.
And no, I was just going to say that my Alzheimer's just kicked in. I have no idea what I was going to say.
I feel your pain. But we could go on and speak for hours about this.
Yeah.
Your experiences and what led you to filmmaking?
Well, I have a slight brain disorder. I can't remember. I'm face blind and name blind.
I'm not.
And I was a terrible student because I couldn't remember things. So it seemed like film was the only logical thing for me to do.
He has an amazing visual memory, so he can remember frames of film and shots and and everything about a movie that he's ever seen. And I am the opposite. Once I see the movie, I can remember a lot, but I do have an amazing memory for faces and people I've met and places. Mm-hmm. So we complement each other in that way.
In many ways.
Yeah. Now and then. Yeah.
And when will your next project start? And what are you working on? And
the way Hal works is that
I work slow, writing.
But he goes, he takes his crack at it first. And you're basically doing, the series that we did, Journey to Planet Earth, had 15 or 16 various films in it. So the whole idea is to take that and translate it into a book about climate change. And I think the whole idea of climate change now is finally getting hold. I mean, we've been working on this for 25 years. So
don't get me started.
Yes, but I think people are starting to finally realize there is climate change. The question is it too late? What do you do? And how do you not drive them wanting to go into pull their hair out or just put a bag over their head and ignore the whole thing?
Don't get me started. This is an issue I've given sermons on.
Yeah.
Growing up in Old Lyme, Connecticut, on Long Island Sound, which I talked to you earlier, but I've watched pieces of ground no longer exist. They've been covered by water. If people don't believe in climate change, they're crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's how I feel.
But it goes much further than that. The reality is that life as we know it will never be the same. Easton will never be the same as it is today in the future.
That's correct.
And for the next 30 to 50 years, this planet is economically doomed. Economically doomed.
And ecologically doomed.
Yes.
Well, that's
So
That's
for sure.
the consequence. It leads to economic doom. But
one of our advisors says, and I think it's really a good way of thinking about it, is that we have to redefine what is the good life. And so, because the American dream, which is something that we all aspire to, or everybody around the world aspire to, we have to redefine what is the good life.
That's correct.
And something that is much more attainable, and something that's much more equitable.
History moves on, existential reality moves on,
Yeah.
and you can't do what you did 60 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, I can,
Yeah,
don't get me,
okay.
please, I'm right with you on this. Anyway, we've been speaking with Marilyn and Hal Weiner. We've been talking about their book, Confessions of Fish Out of Water, Filmmakers in 4 Acts. I recommend it highly to
It's
everyone.
on Amazon.
Oh, it's on Amazon.
Yeah.
Everything's on Amazon.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for being
No.
here. I would love to have you guys back and talk
Sure.
more.
You can't afford us.
You know, I wanted them to call me when Letterman left. They never
Very
called me,
good.
so we'll work it out.
Well, there might be an opening when Conan no, it's not
No,
Conan,
it's,
it's Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy
Yeah,
Fallon.
Yeah,
Jimmy
whatever, anyway.
Yeah.
But thank you for being here on the Rabbi's Roundtable. Your experiences, your book, and your insights are really wonderful.
So how much longer do you have to film? I mean, how much longer is your show?
Oh, I have another
I
segment.
think we're finished.
Yeah, I know, we're done, we're done.
Yes, thank you.
Sit down, sit down until they sit.
Yes. Easton, we will be right back with the Rabbi's Roundtable.
The Avalon Foundation and MCTV programming is proudly supported by Easton Hardware and Floor Covering. Since 1939, we're still there and we still care. Did you know? MCTV programming is available online. Find our shows like Rabbi's Roundtable, Carlisle's Chesapeake, The Shameless Picture Show, Conversations with Sherry, and the Avalon Theater Presents at youtube.com/Midshore Community Television.
And we are back, Easton, and welcome again to the Rabbi's Roundtable. As I said earlier, I'm glad that we are being able to do a new taping. And my next guest, while he needs no introduction, I will introduce anyway. Many of you will recognize our former mayor, Mayor Robert Willey. And Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
I appreciate it. And you have a number of things to share with us, including next steps in what you'd like to see happen and what you'd like to be doing. So let's just talk about that at first.
Well, I'll give you a political plug to start with.
Please do.
We have an election coming up on September 12th,
Yep.
and that's to fill the unexpired term of Megan Cook, who's on the mayor
Right,
now.
who's now
She
the
is
mayor.
now the mayor. And there's 4 candidates, and without a doubt, I think I'm the best candidate available.
There you go.
And
Well, you certainly have experience.
I'm the only one that's used to working with a $25 million plus budget
Yeah.
and a workforce of 150 people.
Wow.
And we've been on a steady keel now for over 20 years, and I think that's
Yep.
experience counts for something.
Oh, absolutely. And you were mayor when I got here.
In 2003 when I went in.
Okay, so I can never remember.
And I was
that.
actually
I
on the
remember when I
council
got here.
and previously a council president. It started in 1991.
Wow. So you certainly have experience, and I'm not being gratuitous. You under your leadership, the town has really grown and been ameliorated, and it's
And
terrific.
we know we've grown, we know we are an attractive spot for
Yep.
people to relocate, and we feel like we have a town that's worthy of mentioning, and it's worthy of people coming and seeing and maybe wanting to stay.
Well, you're absolutely correct, and as I've said before, both here and other places, Easton is not just a little dot on the map.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, not even close. It is a significant area that offers visitors. I know that when family and friends come for the first time, they're always amazed.
I'm still trying to figure out how Easton is known worldwide, because we have an Italian animal substitute manufacturer looking to locate here. We've got a Japanese manufacturer of medical equipment.
Wow.
And we have a German environmental group that's here, plus others that, it just Easton's a little dot on the world map, but yet we're known
No,
worldwide.
it's sophisticated. It offers a number of things that are really attractive, and that's under your leadership. And I'm not being gratuitous. You and the people that surrounded you have a lot to do with that.
And they're still going strong.
Yep. And as I always say, for me, and they've heard this before, the most important text I think in all of the Bible is from the book of Proverbs. Where there is no vision, the people perish.
Mm-hmm.
You brought vision, and you will continue to bring vision. And I think it's important that we still have access and availability to your experience.
There's no shortage of things to be done, no shortage of ideas on the table.
Yep.
It's just a question of picking them out, the ones we want, and let's go ahead and do them.
As I always say, could we get a delicatessen, please?
You know, I was down to Rosenfeld's down in
Yes.
Ocean City.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's too much food on one sandwich.
We'll talk about that another time. I can
okay.
explain that.
Well, you
But,
always bring something home.
Yes, absolutely. Anyway, so what are the issues that you see facing us right now, and what would you like to be addressing once you're done?
I mentioned or wrote down a couple here with no idea at all of trying to prioritize them because they all have to be done, so we need to get to it.
Yeah,
But one of the things on the table is the new comprehensive plan that's will guide Easton for the next 10 years. And this handles things like rate of growth, zoning changes, parks, where we want things placed and how we want them to operate. And that's going to involve a series of meetings with the Planning Commission, plus probably a couple of public hearings along the way. But when we get that done, then you start to think, well, these are some of the questions that are coming up now with the new developers coming to town. These are things they need to know that they've got to do correctly, or they're just not going to fly at Easton.
Yeah.
So we need to get that one done, get it moving.
And I would imagine sometimes the pushback can be pretty tough.
Oh, it can be.
And again, from my perspective, there's always this tension between growth and progress
Yep.
versus maintaining the status quo. And I appreciate both perspectives, but I think growth and progress, when done in the best interest of the community, is always healthy.
Yep. And the amenities are there with them, so
Yeah.
that we don't have people coming in and crowding everything that we've already got.
Right.
But one of the growth issues right now that's on everybody's tongue is the Poplar Hill development,
Oh, yeah.
and that's on the former hospital property on Oxford Road,
I know where it is.
and very close to you.
Very close.
You know, with Poplar Hill, there's a couple of things. One is Easton is already working with watershed problems and impaired rivers and what have you. And these involve drainage from the town in various sections and how it flows into the existing rivers. And if that's not done right, then what is already wrong is just going to get
Worse.
more. Wronger is not a good word, but that's
worse,
it. It gets to be more wronger. And one of these is the Bridge Street project, which happens to start behind my house of all places,
Wow.
and is by the high school football field.
Mm-hmm.
That's already in place, and why would we go ahead and do that and then flow that into a river that's already having problems? Let's clean it up, leave it alone, and let it be what it's supposed to be. It's a natural area where people can kayak and paddleboard. We've already acquired a host of geese in the backyard, and they're making a mess, and my wife says they've got to go. We've got to get them out of there. But anyway, it's fun just to see them in the
Sure.
yard and know that this is the third of 5 projects that we've got. There's still 2 more on the book, so let's get them done.
Good.
Now, when you look at Poplar Hill, the next area right down the street down Oxford Road is the 200 acres of woodland that DNR has provided money for, that the town now has control over. And we need to get that park set up, the walk paths, the hiking trails, the picnic areas, anything we can do in a passive way to allow people just to get out and enjoy the outdoors. And this is a virgin timber that if it's clear cut for development, it's just never going to be back.
Right.
You know, it's
I
a couple
hope-
hundred years in developing.
Oh, yeah.
So-
There's several of us hope that doesn't happen.
So we need to figure that out, and when you look at that particular property, there's also an existing rail trail over on the west side of 322 that needs to cross 322 and connect in with all this. So it's another opportunity to do things.
Cool.
There's issues that come up with that, and that's the traffic on Oxford Road. How do we handle that?
Yeah.
Do we put a paramedic substation out there, which, you know, as the town expands to the south, that may be necessary? There's a lot of issues that need to be done. When we look at that area, we're also, it's an extension of the Eastern Point Park.
Yes.
And we've been talking with the Vulcan people who have
Right.
the stone and slag business on
Right.
Eastern Point about relocating, and that hasn't had a lot of success so far, but there have been some ideas that come up that they may be able to relocate to another area, but they need deep water and
Yes.
they need a little bit of land.
Yes.
And that's a hard combination to find in Talbot County right now.
I know that.
But that's kind of a sticking point with them, and that'll be taken care of, I'm sure, in due time. And that kind of ties you into affordable housing and what's going on there. There's it's unbelievable how many people in Easton right now cannot find a home or an apartment, and they're kind of living with relatives or friends or something like that.
I know that affordable housing has been a discussion.
It's
among
an
the clergy
issue,
as well.
and again, it's not going to be one that's solved with just individual houses being built. There's got to be a real plan for getting this done. There's an apartment complex on Elliott Road and 328 right there by the Giant store.
Right.
That has some possibilities, and then there's got to be more because there's an awful lot of people involved.
Absolutely.
The town of Easton, I guess Rabbi, it's been several years now that we've had a loan program in effect to assist people with home repairs. One of the things they've tried to do is to keep families in neighborhoods where they've lived for decades. And we find that some of these people cannot afford to put a new roof on their house or new windows or something like that. So we've come up with a program through the Affordable Housing Program that will allow low interest, sometimes 1%, maybe less percent, to get these people's homes fixed up so that they can live in them and enjoy life. You know, you don't have to put a bucket over here for a roof leak or something like that. So that's been fairly successful, but we need to come up with some more ideas. We have some homes now that we're renovating and making them available, but it's just not enough to solve the problem. And Easton is not the only place in Talbot County where this should happen, but any of the incorporated towns should be doing some things for the citizens in their towns.
Well, you've got a lot on your plate.
Well, this is just starting.
Yeah, and again, the election is on September 12th.
September 12th.
And you are running for president of the
council.
City Council, which you bring great experience and insight and a history of success. And we look forward to seeing what happens.
Sure want to be part of it.
Yes, and after the election, you'll come back.
I'll come back and talk again.
You will. We've been speaking with former mayor of Easton, Robert Willey, who is now putting his hat in the ring for president of the city council. And as I said, you bring great experience and wisdom and insight, and we hope it works out well for you and Easton. This has been the first of the summer series of the Rabbi's Roundtable. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Be well.